speaker. And can everybody hear me in the back? You guys are good? Okay, so I'll start off. I've been in Kurdistan for the past 2 years. For those of you that don't know what Kurdistan is or where it is, it's in northern Iraq, and it's a different region. It's governed by the Kurds and not by the Iraqis, so it's a completely different place. I graduated, as Bill said, in 2016 from George Mason University, and I immediately got a job in Erbil working with an international NGO. And I worked in NGOs for about 1 year in Erbil, and then I decided to work with the military, the US military, the Italian military, the British, many of the militaries involved in the coalition in the fight against ISIS. And I've done some other things. I own my own company for events management that I own with my girlfriend, who's an Iranian national. I also started a Rescue Pets of Kurdistan. It's like a little thing I want to turn into an NGO to try to do some animal rights after I lost one of my cats that I adopted. I have 3 cats. We've got chickens, ducks. So it's been a fun 2 years. So we'll go ahead and get started. This picture is the sunset in a disputed territory between Iraq and the border of Kurdistan. It's called Kalek, and it kind of lies, in the middle when you're going to Iraq. So I've done. Here we go. So this is Kurdistan. For those of you that don't know, this is the Middle East. Okay, this is Iraq. This is the capital of Iraq, Baghdad. This is Tehran, and this is the heart of Kurdistan. This is where most of the Kurds live, and the Kurds are different than Arabs, they're different than Persians, they're different than Turkish people. The Kurds are, they speak Kurdish, they're ethnically different than everybody else in the region, and they're the largest ethnic group in the world without a state of their own. They are about 40 million people, probably more than 40 million throughout the world. And that's larger than the population of Iraq, that's larger than the population of Syria, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, and even Saudi Arabia. So this is a closer image of Kurdistan. And in 1916, the Sykes-Picot Treaty, kind of put the lines of Iraq, Syria, the Levant here, and the Kurds were obviously already here, and they did not get a state. So this is what Kurdistan looks like with the border, what it would be if they gave Kurdistan its own territory. So here are where the Kurds are: southeastern Turkey, northern Syria, northern Iraq, and northwest Iran. And you can see that Iran's got about 8 million Kurds, Turkey 18 million, 2 million in Syria, and 5 million in Iraq. So they are a large group of people, and they are very hospitable. They're wonderful people. I've absolutely loved it in the 2 years that I've been there. And here's where I've lived since January 2017, like 2 weeks after I graduated from college. I've lived right here in Erbil. So this is the city of Erbil. And it's, I'm sure you guys heard of Mosul before, during the operations to liberate Mosul from ISIS. So we're southeast of Mosul. It's about an hour's drive. So when ISIS was in control of Mosul, we were very, very close, within distance of mortars and long-range artillery. So, but Erbil, in general, is a very safe city. I never had any problems living there. I've, absolutely been very, very safe. Even my mother, Tina, has visited me 2 times, not once, but twice in Erbil.
She just, girlfriend.
Yeah. She couldn't get enough, so she had to visit me twice. So the three main cities in Kurdistan, Iraq, or there's 4. The first one is Erbil, the capital, and then you have Dohuk, you have Suleimania, and you have Kirkuk. Kirkuk was, I'll get to this later, but Kirkuk was recently retaken by Iraqi forces after the Kurds of Iraq did an independence referendum, and in the ensuing conflict of the Kurds wanting to break away from Iraq, the Iraqi forces took back Kirkuk from the Kurds. So I've spent a lot of time working with children and it's just volunteer stuff I do. Like I've been working in the NGOs, but I've spent a lot of time with children, just hanging out. I speak Arabic and I speak pretty good Kurdish, so I'm able to talk with these kids and try to teach them some English. These children are Yazidis.
Can you see?
And for those of you that don't know what Yazidis are, I'll go back one slide. Yazidis are a small group of people. There's about 1 million of them throughout the world. They reside primarily, 750,000 of them reside in Sinjar. This little city here, it's not a city, it's actually a town. It's like a village in Iraq. And when ISIS took 1/3 of this country, they took Sinjar and they massacred 5,000 of the Yazidi people. So these Yazidis, the ones in the picture, they fled to Kurdistan, and they live in a small little area in Erbil, in the city, and I would go visit them, play with them, just hang out with the kids, and try to be a good role model. These are some other Yazidis that, these ones are from, they're from Sinjar as well, but they live in a city up here. It's called Rotary, and it's not on the map because it's a very, very small town. So these are those kids that I've spent a lot of time with. Actually, these children, these ones are in Erbil, but these children are in Rwandus, as I mentioned, and I spent time with them in 2016, the first time I went to Kurdistan, and this is pictures when I went to visit them in 2017 after a year of not seeing them. They were very happy to see me again. These kids are in Erbil. I took them to get ice cream, so I would just hang out with the kids and take them around and just kind of be a big brother and try to do stuff with them and buy them stuff because they're very poor. They don't have jobs. I'd also take all the kids. This is like all the kids from that little camp that they live in. I took them to the park. There's a park in Erbil, a big park, and I took them there. And so this is just an example of like what you can do in your spare time there, because there's so many displaced people. In the start of the displacement, like when ISIS took over Syria and Iraq, the Kurdistan region that I showed you accepted almost 2 million IDPs and refugees, and I think the number even went up close to 3 million. So Kurdistan's done a good job. This is what a refugee camp looks like in Kurdistan. I took this picture early 2017, working for Relief International, one of the NGOs that I worked for. And this is a refugee camp, so this has Syrian people in it, and this is in Iraq. So refugees are different from IDPs. Refugees are people from other countries, and IDPs are just people residing in their own country, but they're as well displaced. So,
Zane, can I interrupt? Who's funding?
Say again?
Who's funding these camps? I mean,
so the camps,
you
like
have organizations like yourself that are helping build them and take care of them and whatnot, but
no.
Where does the money come from?
The money comes from the United Nations to build
So
these
you-
camps. The United Nations, UNHCR, they build all of the camps in Kurdistan. They have a partnership with the Kurdistan regional government, and they build all the camps. But small NGOs like mine service the camps with water projects, health projects, psychological, mental health projects, and stuff like that. So this was one of the camps. I believe it's called Dara Shakran, and it's a camp of Syrian refugees. So this was all of my colleagues from Relief International. You can see me up there in the back. Our office was in Erbil, and this was like finishing my first job. This was my last day. I finished my contract after 6 months. So, and then I'll show you some pictures of Kurdistan. I did a lot of traveling, and as you can see, Kurdistan is not just, it's not a desert. You know, everyone thinks of the Middle East as just primarily sand and sand dunes, and that's about it. But Kurdistan is very mountainous. It's very beautiful. What we like to say in the spring when it's very green is when Kurdistan has its wedding dress on. So I'll show you a few pictures like that. And you can see the snow here on the left side, and it pans out to the mountains. You know, people climb these rocks. I mean, it's just a great place for tourism, and it's, you know, I wish it was more well known for these kind of pictures instead of ISIS. This is another picture. I actually took this picture when Tina was visiting. It's just a nice sunset, about a 15-minute drive outside of Erbil. Just parked on the side of the road, and the views are just spectacular. this is the main, this is the heart of Erbil. This right here is the Citadel, and this is the Big Ben. Okay, we have a Big Ben replica in Erbil. Can you guys still hear me in the back? You good? And yeah, so this is like the big tourist place. There's a bunch of markets in here. You can find just about anything you want. It's very nice. I actually took this picture right before I left. So that's a little bit closer view of it. The Citadel, actually, interesting. This is the longest inhabited like infrastructure in the world. It survived the Mongol invasion. The Kurds have been, the Medes, the predecessors of the Kurds, and the Kurds have lived here for, oh my gosh, thousands of years before, you know, just forever. And it's still here in the heart of Erbil. It's a nice place to go. Tina's been there. She liked it.
A couple times.
Here is some modern infrastructure in Erbil. We have large buildings. It's not just houses and small buildings. We do have skyscrapers, and before ISIS came, Erbil was supposed to be the next Dubai. There was a lot of investment, there's a lot of oil money, and unfortunately when ISIS showed up at the doorstep and you know, all the foreign investors just got on airplanes and were like, see you later. You know, no one's gonna stay anywhere when ISIS is on your doorstep. So Erbil is recovering. The economic crisis is getting better. So all these buildings are uninhabited. There's nobody inside of them. They built them and then ISIS came and everyone fled. Here's another picture of the landscape. You can see when you get into the mountains, it's really beautiful. You have this nice fog, and in the winter it's very gorgeous. So there is snow. These are some of my friends. We'd go climbing around. My feet were frozen that day, you can tell. So this, yeah, just another, some old castle-like stuff. You know, in the mountains again. It's really beautiful. So this is like Kurdistan in its wedding dress. You can see how green it is. I think the light, you might not be able to see how green it is, but it's really gorgeous. The water in the spring gets crystal blue because it's all snow melt. And, you can see this is a picture of some water. This is a very famous place to go swimming, and a very nice tourist attraction. So now let's get into some like more serious stuff. After I worked with Relief International, I started my own NGO with a local partner, and we went to, we were primarily trying to work in Mosul. So we were in Mosul 2 months after the liberation from ISIS, and we were driving around trying to figure out what to do, who to help, you know, who's here, who's not here, who's fled, who's come back home. And you can see the destruction from the war. It's pretty bad. Driving around, and you know, it's obviously not very safe. I wouldn't say it's the safest thing I've done in my life, but it's definitely rewarding when you know you get to help people, and at least try to help people when you do assessments and try to apply for funding. This is one of the areas we tried to replace some windows in. I just put the picture to show you that not all of Mosul looks like those buildings, because some parts are relatively unscathed. But you can see this little village on the outskirts of Mosul is absolutely destroyed. And this old guy, he was showing us around his house, and you know, it's just everything's destroyed. And in many places, it's still like this. There's still no electricity, there are no government services. You know, it's just still destroyed, and these people will live like this until, for probably the next 5-10 years. This is the main river that runs through Mosul. This was a really nice picture I took in the morning. When we were getting across the bridge, and you can see this is one of the main bridges in Mosul, and we were doing an assessment trying to figure out what to do, who to help. Unfortunately, the river now has been drained because Turkey dammed the water, and this river is like very, very low now. But you can see ISIS blew up the bridge as they retreated, and they didn't want the coalition to come across the bridge. So this bridge still looks like this over a year. It's been over a year now. Here's another picture of Mosul. This is in West Mosul, in an area called Zinjili. You can see the cars are all destroyed. Everything's, you know, piled up on the roads. It's actually looks good actually for Mosul in the west, because you can actually drive down the street. But you can see all this rubble was in the way. People have pushed it to the sides. People are even burning their own doors for firewood because there's just not a lot of government services. Most of the houses that people live in now were taken by ISIS. So this says Beit Daesh, and that means it's an ISIS house. Like ISIS would just come and just take your house, and they would spray paint it. This is our house, and you couldn't come back. So innocent people would have to deal with this. But most of the houses were cleared of IEDs and mines. Houses like this, you can see there was a firefight in here. There's bullet holes in this little girl's house. I don't know if they stayed when ISIS was there. And this little boy, I'll never forget this because he was telling me in Arabic that this was his room. And you can see it now that it's completely destroyed. And he was saying in Arabic, this was my room. And, I just felt so bad. There's nothing we can really do. We just have to go try to get funding and come back and try to help. Here's the general hospital in Mosul. So the destruction is just endless, and the city has been completely destroyed. This was the main hospital, and you guys can see the level of destruction. I mean, that used to be a hospital. I mean, that's how bad it is. So this was also not one of the smartest things I did in my life. It was pretty fun, but this is inside an ISIS tunnel underneath, under the ground. It went for about 15 minutes both ways.
Tina didn't know that.
Not at the time.
I wasn't too happy inside, but on the way out, I was a lot happier. I never was more happy to see the light of day again in my life, but there was definitely an interesting experience. So yeah, I mentioned the independence referendum that the Kurds had on September 25th, 2017. Yes, and the Kurds basically were like, we don't want to be part of Iraq anymore, and they had an independence referendum to vote yes or no to be separate from Iraq. 93% of the population voted in favor of independence, but without cooperation with Baghdad and federal Iraq, without support from the United States, the Kurds lost all of this territory, including Kirkuk. As I mentioned, it was one of the 4 major cities of Kurdistan in Iraq, and since then, everything went even worse. We thought after ISIS is gone, things are going to get better, but this independence referendum was absolutely awful, and it closed our airport. International flights were banned for 8 months. That's why Tina had to fly to Turkey and take a car across the Turkish border and drive down south to Erbil. All of the investors, once again, the ones that decided to come back after ISIS, once again they fled because they're like, why are we going to stay here if there's no airport to get out?
And no banks.
And no banks. All the banks were closed. International banks were not allowed. So Iraq really punished us. The international community punished us, and I stayed there the entire time. I obviously couldn't get a flight, and I didn't feel like leaving, so I stayed through the entire 8 months of the airport being closed, and we were pretty happy when it opened. So
Yes.
we could, we didn't feel like we were stuck in jail. What's next? Yeah. So politics, real quick. How am I doing on time? Good. So the KDP is the main political party in Kurdistan, Iraq. The PUK is the kind of secondary party in Kurdistan, Iraq, and we actually just had parliamentary elections, and the KDP remained in power. They won the majority of seats, so that's good because the status quo stays the same, and there's no kind of fighting for seats. So that just gives you, like, Erbil is here, Dohuk is here, and this is the KDP part, and then that other city, Suleimania, and then Kirkuk. So these are PUK affiliated. A lot of people accuse the PUK of being aligned with Iran because many of the head PUK officials were in Iran as refugees during the time of Saddam. So, yeah, that just gives you a little graphic of the 2 main political parties. There are many more political parties as there are many minorities in the Kurdistan region, such as Christians, Shabaks, Yazidis, Kakais, many different types of religions and ethnicities that many people haven't heard of, but they're just not really represented. It's mainly KDP and PUK. So here's Tina. There she is, right here in the middle. This is my girlfriend Paria, and she's from Iran. This is me, obviously. So yeah, it was great to have Tina come to Erbil. It was awesome to see your mom. You know, you live somewhere for 2 years, and she gets to come visit you in, you know, Iraq, Kurdistan. You know.
Iraq. I never thought I'd go to Iraq.
Yeah.
Not beach spice.
Right?
And I'm gonna go again.
So real fun times, and we look forward to Bill coming to Erbil. So he will be hopefully coming in December. We might have Christmas in Iraq, so that'll be a first for all of us.
Can you take the Mustang there?
We can sell tickets, we can sell the tickets
We
there.
can sell some tickets, right? So another thing that I've done, which is actually pretty cool, I've worked as a host for a radio station called Babylon FM, and I've been a host of a morning show called The Breakfast Club, and we're on air live every morning, broadcasting to the entire Kurdistan and Iraqi population in Mosul. We go 8 a.m. live till 9:30, and then it's like a rerun of what we talked about. So this is the French Consul General in Erbil, and we interview many important people. We talk about all kinds of things. Trump is always somebody we like to talk about because he's always giving us news. You know, we discuss everything.
Is your programming in English or Kurdish?
It's in English, yes. And we're the only English radio station in Iraq and in Kurdistan as well. So it's been a lot of fun working at Babylon, and it's kind of kept me sane because, you know, out of all the stress and out of all the craziness and all the, you know, what am I going to do next with my life? Babylon has been, you know, something very fun for me to do. Yes, sir.
Is your station on the internet?
Yeah, so you can listen to us live. I think our show is live here at 1 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well said, sure.
Yeah.
So you can check it out. It's babylonfm.net. Babylonfm.net.
Yeah.
So Syria, I noticed, was a lot greener. There's a lot more trees. It's closer to the ocean. It's got a better climate. So it's actually more beautiful, in my opinion, than Kurdistan, Iraq, because places that aren't in the mountains have trees. Places that aren't in the mountains in Erbil is just dry, a lot of weeds. But Syria is actually, northern Syria was a very beautiful country. And the reason that Turkey, do we have a question? No? The reason that Turkey, I was speaking earlier, doesn't like the Kurds is because of this guy. This is Abdullah Öcalan, and he's the leader of the PKK. And the PKK is designated as a terrorist organization by the United States as well as Turkey. And all the Kurds in Syria, they are linked to Abdullah Öcalan, who they're kind of like an offshoot organization, if that makes sense. And they say they're not, but when you go to Syria and you see this guy's face on the streets, you know why Turkey hates the Kurds so much, because he's the leader of the PKK, he's jailed in Turkey, and the YPG, the Kurdish, the Syrian Kurds, are looking to him as like their leader. So not all of the Syrian Kurds look to him as their leader, but since some do, according to Turkey, they all do. And that's why Turkey took Afrin, and that's why it was such an international kind of crisis. Everyone's like, why is Turkey invading Syria, taking Afrin? But it's primarily because Turkey is scared of the Syrian Kurds and them creating a democratic federal region on Turkey's southern border. So, yeah, if anyone has any questions, I could continue for sake of time.
Do you think that politically they'll ever have their own state?
I think it's very possible, but I don't think it's probable. I don't think it's something that's going to happen due to Turkey being such a power and the United States not fully supporting the SDF. This is the flag of the Syrian Kurdistan. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question from back a little bit. Why was the international community so resistant to the Kurds breaking off and trying to become independent?
What's the question?
That's a good. The question was, why was the international community, including the United States, so resistant to the Kurds in Iraq having an independence referendum and breaking off from Iraq, right?
Yeah, I think.
Because I think the simple answer is that Baghdad didn't want it in Iraq, and the United States has a one Iraq policy. And if Baghdad isn't in agreement and the United States isn't in agreement, they're not going to support the Kurds who do govern themselves break away from Iraq, because, you know, we did invade Iraq in 5 minutes left. We did invade Iraq in 2003, and you know, we want to keep the country whole. And if one of the regions in the top just goes rogue and breaks off, you know, why did we go and do what we did to keep the country together? So I think that's the short answer. This is the flag of Syrian Kurdistan. I just realized I haven't shown you the flag of Iraqi Kurdistan. And I'm showing you the one of Syria where I barely went. Yeah, that's it. I just thought it was really cool because, you know, I never thought I'd go to Syria. And in North Syria also they have a lot of oil. These look like water ponds, but that's actually oil. You know, you can just like dig in the ground and oil's coming up.
Wow.
So those are just pools of oil. It absolutely shocked me. I was amazed to see that. That's actually very close to the border with Iraq, maybe 20, 30 miles away. This was on July 4th, 2018. This is the U.S. Consul General Ken Gross. And I forgot this guy's name, but he's the ambassador to Iraq, U.S. ambassador to Iraq. And the only reason I got to take a picture with these two guys was because I worked for Babylon FM, and we interviewed Consul General Ken Gross, and he invited us to the U.S. Independence Day celebration, where also the president of Kurdistan was there. So there were a lot of high-profile people. So I'm kind of proud of this picture. I like it. And then I think some of you know the gentleman in the middle. This is Nahro. He came here and spoke at Rotary Club. Maybe you guys remember. Nahro's been my guardian angel, my big brother in Kurdistan, and he supported me in everything. This is also a famous journalist, but you guys probably haven't heard of him. But Nahro's been awesome, and a lot of my success and the reason that I haven't been kicked out of the country is because of Nahro. Because when you get successful in a place like northern Iraq, people don't like you as well. So, but Nahro's always been there for me, and this was at the 4th of July Independence Day celebration. So Nahro's been a great guy, and I saw him just a few weeks before I left. So this is the logo I made for that Rescue Pets of Kurdistan that I was talking about. After one of my cats died, because of basically no veterinary care or adequate veterinary care, I decided to try to start advocating for the rights of animals through videos, pictures on Facebook and Instagram as a start, and we'll see where it goes. This is also the logo of my company, and the last slide for you guys. This is my company called Ventifact, and if you don't know what a Ventifact is, it is a rock in the desert that has been shaken by wind, so it takes a long time to kind of change the rock. So that's my company, and my girlfriend is the one that does everything because I'm busy working and, as you can see, traveling and doing other stuff. So, but I help her and all that, and yeah, that's it. So if you guys have any questions, please. Thank you so much. Yeah.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Since I want to stay up and listen to your talk show.
Sure.
In Arabic or English?
It's in English.
Okay.
Yeah, all English. Mr. Holcomb, yes, sir.
I was gonna say, you know a lot about government. You'll be happy to know they fired all the lousy government teachers.
Mr. Holcomb was my history professor in high school, so good to see you, Mr. Holcomb. Yes, sir, in the back.
Did you show, was it 18 million Kurds in Turkey?
Yeah, the graphic did show 18 million, but
Right, so that's about 20% of the population of Turkey.
yeah.
I just wanted to remind everybody that after World War I, 100 years ago, the Greeks were empowered and they drove Ataturk and the Turkish army back to the line between the spotted yellow area and the red area, and then the Kurds jumped in and helped Ataturk take Turkey back.
And then the Turks slaughtered 40,000 Kurds, and it's been pretty bloody for the Kurds for the past 100 years, since 1916.
So I have a million questions, but I'll
Sure.
try and keep it down. Number one is, did you speak Arabic before you went over, or is this all on the ground?
I learned Arabic in Jordan, actually, and also with a tutor here.
Okay.
And then, but when I got to Erbil, I really developed the ability to not only listen and comprehend, but to speak and have people understand me. And yeah, it's without a foreign language there, you can't do the cool things that I got to do.
Okay, but here's my second question, and forgive my ignorance.
Sure.
If the Kurds don't have truly their own state, like
They do not.
it's Kurdish Iraq and, you know, Kurdish Syria or Syria Kurd. How does the perimeter stay safe?
The perimeter of
The region that the Kurds currently inhabit, like you're recognizing,
here? This border?
yeah, like that red, that nice solid red perimeter.
So it's not
Is it just-
solid, it's solid on this map.
Yes,
But, you know, the Kurds, they have their own security forces called the Peshmerga,
okay.
okay? The Peshmerga are, you know, kind of like their army, and they protect the border, they protect it from ISIS. So while I was living there in 2017 and ISIS was still in Mosul, they would drive suicide bombers at Erbil and the Peshmerga would stop them, as well as planes from the US coalition, US-led coalition. So they're protected by, and we have our own like Asaish, it's called, it's like police.
Okay.
Okay, and then we have our
All
own.
the infrastructure, you just literally don't have your own land.
Right, we have ministries for tourism, ministries for oil and natural resources, ministries for everything else. Yes, sir.
Tell us about your girlfriend.
That's why you have to come to the open house, right?
Oh,
Maybe
we
Gina
forgot the
could do
book.
She wrote a book?
No, she's on the cover of the only printed Kurdistan tour guide.
Oh.
Okay?
Is it on the internet?
Yeah, let me look it up for you guys. And I worked as an intern for the Kurdistan regional government in 2016. And
You mean here in town at the diplomatic representation?
yes, sir, on 16th Street.
I'm not
So
Can you say something in Kurdish like, I'm happy, so happy to be back in the United States?
I can do it in Arabic, not in Kurdish.
Oh, I thought you said you
Would
spoke
you like me to
Kurdish.
say it? Ani farhan, ani raja min Arabiya. That's I'm happy, and I'm happy I returned from Erbil. Yes, sir.
Your name is Zain, right?
Yes, sir.
What does it mean in Iraqi Arabic, Zain?
Zayn in Iraqi Arabic is actually a word that's used as like cool or okay. If we're talking, Zayn, Zayn, it's good. So it means good in Iraqi Arabic. In general, it means like, you know, beautiful, you know, this type of, you know, meaning. But my girlfriend, she's from Iran, and she's a wonderful girl. She's on the cover of that book. And when we met,
She's a Kurd.
yeah, she's a Kurd from Iran.
Oh, okay.
She speaks Farsi. I've learned a lot of Farsi as well, so I'm waiting for the CIA to contact me in about 5 years. And say, come work for us.
Is she an agent? Is she a CIA agent?
I don't think so. So anyways, that's about it. If you guys have any other questions, please, I'll be over here with Tina.
So he missed the part, you know, he's been out of the country for 2 years, right?
What did I
He's been in
forget?
Iraq and Turkey. Coming back last Saturday night, what happens to this kid when he shows up in New York City? At Kennedy Airport.
Yeah.
Paris.
That connection,
That's exactly what
that
they
flight
think,
connection
yeah.
did not get made.
Yeah, I missed my flight because they interrogate me
Back
each
in the
time I
room.
return for an hour, and I have to repeat my story every, you know.
Maybe you should just take the PowerPoint presentation.
It'd be pretty helpful, right?
Well, thank you, Zane.
All right, guys, thank you so much.
$25.
You know what you should do?
All right, guys.